And debt is the big elephant in the room, including in the Islamic finance room, because most of Islamic finance out there simply creates more and more debt. Now, does that pursue the intention of the Creator? Now, if you look at the principles and rules of Shariah and the prohibition of a debt-based, interest-based economy, an interest-based debt economy, I should say, the objective behind that is to promote real economy, because the principle in Sharia is al-kharaju bil-daman or al-ghunmu bil-ghurm, that the people with money should not be able to earn money simply because they've got money to start with. They need to engage and assume and be subject to all of those risks, natural risks, commercial risks out there. Whereas if I lend somebody money, he takes those risks and I only take a credit risk. That creates structurally an artificial economy. So in Islamic finance, the big problem is how do we promote risk-reward sharing-based economies within Muslim and non-Muslim communities. It's not just a Muslim problem. This is a problem throughout the world. I'd like to finish off by quoting some research done by Baker Tilly in the UK for Step Change, the debt charity. And they said that the problem debt in the UK, the total cost of it, so we often ask what's the cost of achieving the SDGs, but we should ask ourselves what's the cost to the earth and to society and to our legacy of not achieving them? What's the cost of carrying on the way we are? And the cost of problem debt in the UK is £8.3 billion. And we all pay for that because taxpayers' money goes to pay for the mental health problems that people face because of debt. I was listening to Radio 4 the other day, and there was a young lady, a student, who went out to buy a car, a small runner, to run around and do the shopping. She went into a dealer. The dealer sold her a brand new car worth more than £20,000, which she simply couldn't afford. She fell into arrears and she became stressed. She went to hospital. Her mother was in distress. Who pays for the cost of that? If people lose their jobs because of debt and they go into benefits, who pays for that? We pay for that, the taxpayer. The total cost, the biggest cost of debt in the UK, biggest single cost of debt, which is 2.8, I'm going to finish with this, 2.8 billion pounds, is the cost of losing a home or being evicted for not being able to pay the mortgage. And of course that has knock-on costs in terms of health, mental health, suicide, breakdown of relationships, breakdown of marriage, children in broken down homes, and so on. This is the cost of debt. No wonder God in the Quran declares war on interest. It's the only thing He declares war on. He doesn't declare war on highway robbers or rapists or warmongers. All those things are bad things. He declares war on people who consume interest. So I complained about this for about 10 years, and then I thought I need to do something about it. So me and a few colleagues, we set up a brand new institution which will provide debt-free home finance. Imagine that. You can buy your home, pay for it for over 20, 30 years, pay approximately what you pay elsewhere, but never be in debt. This is why the Shariah was sent down to the Prophet Mohammed ﷺ to free people from the bondage of debt. وَجَزَاكُمُ khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
Someone asked a question, and we've had this discussion about Islamic finance playing under a different set of circumstances, and generally the discussion for the last 10 to 20 years at least in Islamic finance has always been, look, we understand and we appreciate it's not 100%, for want of a better term, Islamic, but under the circumstances in which we're operating, it's the best we're going to do. Now there's a principle in Islam, Islamic jurisprudence, which is called Sadd al-Dara'i, which means to close the door to harms. Closing the door. So this means that something that will lead to a harm should be closed. With the Islamic structures that we've had, if we haven't achieved the outcomes and we're finding people in record levels of debt in Muslim majority countries, in economies where Islamic finance is flourishing, instead of discussing the possible benefits and things being tayyib, shouldn't our priority be to reduce those harms, Dr. Akram?
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wa bihi nasta'in. Of course, preventing harm is part of the overall maqasid al-Shari'ah, jalbul masalih wa dar'ul mafasid, meaning that to to attain benefit and also to prevent any kind of harm. And I'm glad that you mentioned about this issue regarding Saddu Zara'i. Now, even if you look into the Quran, you see when the Quran mentioned about the prohibition of gambling and also consumption of liquor, you see, I mean, the beautiful ayah in the Quran mentioned that يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا. For me, this is a great kind of principle that is there in the Quran, in which when the Prophet was asked, about the consumption of liquor and also gambling, and the Quran says, tell them that in both of this action, you see, there are فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ. I mean, there are great harm in it, you see, but however, there are some benefit in it, right? But the harm is much more than the benefit. So whenever there is anything in which the harmful effect of it is greater than the benefit of it, I mean, here where the Shariah gives the indication that it is prohibited. Okay, so similarly, when we talk about financial product, if there is any financial product in which, I mean, the harm is greater than the benefit, then it can be categorized as something which is prohibited. Now, the challenge is that how do you define, all right, whether it is harmful or it is not? Take, for example, we always talk about this debt-based product in Islamic finance. Nowadays, I think we can conveniently say that 80-90% of the product that is in the market across the globe is a debt-based market. Take, for example, credit card, right? As a Sharia scholars, there are different ways and means, you see, different underlying contract that can be used to devise a credit card. But then there will be certain impact. You see, I mean, you are creating a debt-ridden society. Take, for example, in Malaysia, you see, about 40% of the people who are declared bankrupt, especially among the youth, you see, they are declared bankrupt because of the debt of credit card. You see, so this is the kind of data that is needed in order for us to go further to say that yes, I can approve you to have this credit card, but this is the condition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see, otherwise, I mean, it is not going to be approved. You see, so for me, it is a collective effort that needs to be done by everyone. You see, in order for us to go to another level.
Is the shortcoming then with society and the general Islamic scholarship in moving society away from instant gratification, buying things now with debt? Because ultimately, the Islamic finance scholars have been facilitating that type of movement. So is it for them to make a stand, or is it for other scholars and leaders within society to say, actually, the way society is going, we need to change it, if that makes sense?
For me, it is not only related to the ruling or to the fatwa that is given by the scholar, but there are other dimensions. I mean, the education. The financial management. You see, to what extent, let's say, the education system, you see, is catering for people to manage their financing, right? Do we have enough items that is embedded in our national curriculum, for example, you see, to teach our children how to manage financing? All come into the picture. So facilitating is one of the aspects, because of course, there are many people out there, they are using the products that is available, you see, in a very disciplined manner, so they can always you see success, and there are people who abuse sometimes, you see, or misuse the system and whatnot. So it is, for me, we need to look from the holistic perspective.
The other point I'd like to make is about the education, about educating entrepreneurs, educating especially young people, because they're the entrepreneurs of the future, about what their responsibilities are in not only being Sharia compliant, but as moral citizens. And that's really important. It's really important that education is independent, because I'll give you a small example. I had a friend who was a manager at Centrepoint, the homeless charity, and they work a lot with homeless people. They have a lot of homeless people in hostels. And he was organizing a course for them on how to manage their finances. And the whole course was about how to get a credit card and how to be in debt responsibly. That was the theme. So he said to his manager that before we do that, shouldn't we first try to get them to budget and manage themselves without getting into debt? How to budget and be financially independent. And he said, no, we can't do that because this is sponsored by one of the big banks. So independent education is immensely important. And so when you have information, this comes back to the point about information. When information is channeled through vested interests who are interested in promoting a certain type of economy, you're not going to have independent, open education for the next generation. And so the role of Sharia scholars should be to open that up. And what I find with Islamic finance education today is it's all about Islamic finance. There's very little about the fundamental principles of Sharia and Islamic economy as a whole.
Yep.
It's become very pigeonholed. The evidence of harm, it's no coincidence that the greatest deforesting countries that are cutting down the rainforests and cutting the lungs of the earth, those countries are also the countries that are historically most in national debt. So why do they destroy the environment? Because they're between a rock and a hard place. They're in debt. And when you put people into desperate debt situations, you get all sorts of harms to the environment, to society, breakdown of families, children brought up in broken families and so on. We really need to address this problem. And there's a raison d'etre problem or question for Islamic finance, which is, are we truly serving the intention of God and the reason why he sent the Prophet Mohammed, peace be upon him, to the earth with the noble Shari'ah, if 80 to 90% of Islamic finance is debt-based?